presentation on is Does Google Make Us Stupid? It was an article in the Atlantic in the summer of 2008. The author, Nicholas Carr, came to the arrangement that you can't read books anymore. He finds himself flitting between pieces of information. He wonders if somehow he's denigrating in terms of his thought process. And the reality is we're bombarded with information like never before in ways that are much different than we historically learned to read and comprehend information. We no longer do deep dives. It's very much a flitting involvement of, wow, click at that page, what's it say, how's it work? And it leads to the crackberry effect. You're constantly looking for who's on Twitter, what's the latest email, and the reality is that's a function of dopamine hit. It's almost like your Pavlov's dog. You're consistently saying, all right, what's next, what's next, what's next? And it's gotten to such a point that we're receiving 3 times as many inputs as our parents and grandparents in the 60s in terms of messaging hitting us. And if the average worker in an hour has 37 some clicks, changing windows, looking at email, going back and forth. And it's not just a computer geek problem. If you're watching TV at home, watching the 88 finals, I would see that on CBS, whereas today I would see is Sammy Sosa still white? When can I buy tickets for the next game? For the next 6 stories coming up on SportsCenter. It's a very different effect in terms of trying to comprehend what's coming at you. And in terms of receiving that information, is Google making us stupid? Google is, until Facebook clips a few weeks ago, the main way in which we interact with the web. And Eric Schmidt's on record saying we're going to augment humanity, the thought process by which we gather information. And that's done through PageRank. So, the validity of the site, the number of times it's clicked through links, you receive, you don't go past the first page, I know I don't. You receive a very finite view of what other people think is important in terms of information out in the marketplace. And increasingly that comes from fewer and fewer people. There's 6 major media companies now versus 50 plus in the 80s. They're primarily owned by people who look like me. And the guy that said fight the power and she watched Channel Zero now has a horrible show on VH1, embarrassing himself and several ladies. CNN did it, so if you say, all right, fight the man, I'll get my information through social media and other means. CNN did a study just 2 weeks ago saying that basically a quarter to a fifth of us send 80+% of the links out there. So if you think you're getting a highly segmented usage of stories, it's not the case. And once you get it, then you can self-select, say, well, I want to watch Drudge Report because I think Obama's a socialist, or I think George Bush is evil incarnate, so I'm going to go to the Huffington Post and reinforce the beliefs I have based off a finite number of people interacting with me. And thus the narrative becomes the same. We all get rickrolled. We know what's, I can't remember what the saying is. But, basically, the broad information is shared across all of us, and your tribe reinforces that, hey, the president had 2 books published before he became president, and somehow born in Kenya, 50 of us believe that. And thus, our mind is going. We're constantly flitting for information. We're not comprehending things. We're not looking to the deep dive on what really is important. And we're losing our humanity. And I find this hilarious. And I'm like, my wife's like, you realize I was made in 86, and there's never been an internet in 80s, so people are like, I vaguely remember the 3 Amigos. We will fight like lions for our humanity. It's not necessarily we have to advocate our humanity to technology and say we're going to be sheeple. Many years ago, Socrates, either dead or drunk on hemlock or somewhere in between, said that writing was going to be absolutely horrible. If we had writing, then at the end of the day, people that aren't equipped to use information will have access to it, and ignorant people will look smart. Likewise, due to information availability, a guy that pushes oxen in China might actually have the cure for cancer. We can react to things like Haiti. Memphis would have a vastly different trajectory if we had the input on how to combat yellow fever in the late 1800s. This is a plug for Eric, by the way, if you like this. If I'm in a new city and I know that I like steak tartare, I can go to Mark's Menus and find that. I don't have to use a travel agent to find a map to get from point A to point B. I can immediately pull that up. So that there's a plus minus in terms of what technology is doing to us and how we interact. And at the end of the day, I didn't presume to have the answer. Does Google make us stupid? It probably makes us more of what we already are. If you're prone to log-gag and goof off, there's ample opportunity to do so. If you want to use the power of the internet for good, you can do that as well. There's options out there. Instead of the masses on Google, you can go to somewhere like Quora and get a deep dive of experts with information. If I want to cook, I can go to Epicurious and get every kind of recipe known to man. I can read books in their historic and/or electronic form. I can also use technology in an Aikido format to basically combat my own inaneness in terms of clicking on links all the time. These are 4 different things you can say. Don't let me click out of this browser for 30 minutes, or let me stay in email for this period of time. And the reality is, at the end of the day, whether you want to be a great dad, a great husband, great wife, a great Olympic swimmer, it's all about the focus on the task at hand and using technology as a tool, not letting it